This lecture covers criminological theory. How is it used to explain variation in drug and alcohol use and related behaviors? Criminological theories of drug and alcohol use are sociological theories that are specific to the criminalized conceptualization of substance use. When discussing medicalized substance use, they do so in context of the criminal justice system, deviance, and social control. The delinquent boys thesis was developed as a general theory of subculture. Albert K. Cohen proposed that people end up as members of deviant subcultures because of an inability to conform to cultural norms. Cohen notes that the ability to conform is determined by social structure. Low status positions were suggested to have a positive association with deviant subculture, meaning that people in low statuses were more likely to be deviant. When applied to the understanding of drug and alcohol use, the delinquent boys thesis suggests that drug use occurs because it allows the highest chance for successful conformity to cultural norms. While this might certainly explain some substance use, it does not explain situations like when wealthy people engage in substance use. Instead, it implies that people will not use alcohol or drugs unless they are at the margins of society. Criminological theories such as the delinquency and opportunity model address that drug use is found in both poor and wealthy communities, suggesting that drug use is not a means of conforming with cultural norms, but is instead a means of conforming to the behavior of those in your immediate social groups. Drug use is determined by access to the opportunity to use drugs and the perceived morality of drug use per group norms, according to this perspective. In direct opposition to the idea that exposure to those modeling drug use in a flattering way increases one's chances of drug use, Spergel's 1964 study of heroin users found no evidence that the people studied engaged in heroin use to boost in-group self-esteem. Spergel argues that heroin use allowed users an escape from the perceived moral failing of heroin use, having outgrown the behavior. This would suggest that drug use is the reaction to changed group norms when unable to conform to the new norms. In other words, to cope with a midlife crisis. There is some evidence that some drug users identify their drug use as a positive behavior. However, there is also evidence that many use drugs despite their understanding and endorsement of drug use as deviant. For example, Sykes and Matza's theory of techniques of neutralization outlines 5 methods people use to justify bad behavior. 4 of these techniques are helpful for the understanding of drug and alcohol use. The 4 forms are denial of responsibility, denial of the victim, denial of injury, and condemning the condemners. Denial of responsibility allows drug users to frame themselves as victims. For example, here, Katie Heron in the film Mean Girls, Lindsay Lohan, explains her drinking behavior, among other things, as the result of everyone being in love with her. Other examples of denial of responsibility include things like blaming the dealer for one's own continued drug use. Denial of the victim allows drug users to justify their deviant behavior due to contextual circumstances. Here, a note to contextual deviance. For example, this meme depicts Ron Burgundy in the film Anchorman or Will Ferrell, suggesting that excessive drinking does not count as deviant if it is used to relieve stress. Denial of injury allows drug users to justify their deviant behavior on the basis that it did not result in the harm of others. For example, a common argument used in the ongoing discussion about cannabis legalization uses denial of injury by highlighting the harm associated with other substance use. Pro-legalization advocates point out the high comparative number of deaths associated with alcohol use, either due to poisoning or injurious accident, as compared with cannabis use. This chart shows findings from a study by the Washington State Safety Commission that finds support for this argument. Per their findings, 38% of fatal crashes between 2008 to 2016 involved alcohol-only impaired driving, while cannabis-only impaired driving could only account for 6% of the deaths during that time period. They do note that poly drug use, or the use of more than one substance at a time, such as the combined use of alcohol and cannabis, became more common during this time period. Condemning the condemners allows drug users to justify their deviant behavior on the basis that it is no worse than other, less stigmatized deviant behavior. For example, related to our previous example of the danger of alcohol-impaired versus cannabis-impaired driving, when confronted about their cannabis use, cannabis users may point out the accuser's use of other substances. Here we can see a Willy Wonka meme demonstrating a hypothetical accusation of hypocrisy. Willy Wonka states, "Oh, so you're against marijuana? Tell me more about how you drink every weekend." This condemns those who use alcohol yet criticize cannabis use, the assertion being that cannabis use is not deviant because the accuser is also engaging in a deviant behavior. Drug use is justified by the deviant actions of the accusers. Feminist criminology aims to center women's experiences with the criminal justice system, the argument being that the criminal justice system is both gendered and racialized. Feminist criminology critiques the use of general theory, arguing that general theories miss the different experiences by those at the margins of society and mischaracterize the entire criminal justice system as representative. This is despite its basis in the experiences of one group of people, or the normal experience. Feminist criminology has been used to point out misconceptions such as the idea that the criminal justice system is less penal for women than it is for men. When accounting for the unique experiences of women in contact with the criminal justice system, research suggests that the criminal justice system might actually be more penal for women than it is for men. NPR demonstrates the uniqueness of women's prisons in the report, "Women in Prison, Stuck in a Place for Men." The clip is included here, and I ask you to please watch it upon the end of this video.